to Breathe California TV. I'm Terry Trumbull. I'm a volunteer who does this show and also serves as environmental health manager. No more important way in the Bay Area to protect your health than to drive a clean car. And we have Bob Garzee here to talk about the Think electric car that you can grab for yourself and save the environment and protect your health. See you in 30 seconds.
1 in every 5 children in America suffer from asthma. And lung cancer is the leading cancer killer in both men and women. Our goal is to raise awareness, fight lung disorders, and save lives. With the Breathe Extreme Challenge, you can make a difference. Here's how it works. First, register at lungsrus.org. Collect pledges to reach your goal. Then, have the experience of a lifetime by rappelling down a 15-story building. Breathe California.
Welcome back. I'm Terry Trumbull. This is the Breathe California TV show. A little bit about Breathe California. We're the lung health people in California. We get in and work with you to solve your problems. Last year, we helped 150,000 people just within the San Jose Campbell area for their lung breathing problems. But even more important, let's not have those problems occur. 70% of our air pollution comes from cars, and my good friend Bob Garzee's got a solution for us. Welcome back. Bob is the most frequent guest on this show, and for good reason. So tell us about the Think car.
Well, Terry, we believe clean air comes from a lot of effort. And as you said, 70% of the emissions come from vehicles. So while Breathe does such a great job over on the smoking and the emission side, we focus strictly on transportation. And our team is a volunteer team. We look at all kinds of vehicles and what we can do to get vehicles and fuel that reduces the emission. Gasoline we use a lot of, diesel we use a lot of, but as you know, they create a lot of emissions. Our favorite target is school buses. We match up a heavy-duty vehicle using diesel. There's 350,000 of them in the United States, but our children ride those vehicles. So the local chapter of Breathe California really works hard with us to go after that.
So let me get in my cheap shot here,
Sure.
which is this is even better than replacing a regular car with electric, because diesel is more than half, almost 3/4 of the damage is being done to our lungs from toxic pollutants in the air. So every time you replace one of those, you're doing the work of the saints.
Well, and there's usually 40 to 70 children on those buses. As it turns out, they don't have to be diesel, they don't have to be gasoline, they can be electric. And one of our jobs, since we're located in a great part of America, which is Silicon Valley, is we can reach out into the valley and find technology that we can bring over into transportation. And that's where our people's expertise really pay off.
So I'm going to interrupt you again just to get another free plug-in. If you're a parent, you want a Think car, an electric car, for much the same reasons that we want them in school buses. Kids between 0 and 15 have developing lungs, and the damage from air pollution is more severe to them than it is for everyday adults. So both of those audiences, you've been talking about electric buses, but I just want to keep our audience here. Anybody that's parent that's got kids, you want to be driving around in a car that's safer for your kids.
Well, we have kind of a two-step program. Is if you eliminate the school bus, then 40 mothers or 70 mothers drive their children to school, which is probably in a gasoline vehicle. So we really think that eliminating the gasoline school bus is a tremendous approach to getting the volume cut down. Now, if the parent decides to have a car that's electric, like I do, I drive an electric car, that takes care of about 75% of the emissions that would come from a car. We've taken it even further in this valley, Silicon Valley, is because the issue is very focused on solar. Now, it's not solar that's blue sky, but solar that is used today. And most school districts have a cover over all their parking lot. And almost 60% of them have solar on that cover. They can use the solar energy to take care of the cost of operating the building, which is helpful, or they can use that solar canopy to actually make energy that can be used for fuel. If you have an electric bus and you have solar fuel, we call it zero emission squared. In fact, your director, Margot, is very focused on using solar to provide the fuel for buses. It's a tremendous effort. We support her all the way.
So let's just reiterate this. I'm probably not being as attentive to the school bus as you're discussing, but every one of us can buy a Think car and then put solar on our home,
Yes.
which charges up the car when it's home.
That's right. And when you say that, I'll switch to cars,
Okay.
because this is the car that we have been asked to implement in Silicon Valley by a company called Think North America. This is a limited production vehicle, but it's a good two-seater car, and they ask us to come out and install them in the United States, but in Silicon Valley where the acceptance level is very high. We were able to put in 50 of these vehicles into businesses and into people's homes. As it turns out, 44% of those 50 are being used charged with solar. So we're getting the best of both worlds. We believe this car, which runs 100 miles, by the way, most people in America drive 35 miles or less a day, so it does have its place. And we believe at 75 miles an hour, it can stay out there with the other vehicles on the freeway and do that job. But most importantly, we focus on fleets. And we've put these cars into fleets because usually if you're operating a fleet in a city, you don't drive to another city or to another state. You always come back at night. So this limited mileage, but yet high performance and zero emission car turns out to be a great vehicle for the fleet market.
So I'm not quite sure which way to go, but I just cannot resist putting in a plug for anybody that thinks they need a zippy car. Get an electric one. I had a close friend who's on the Breathe California board. Everybody knows him, Rod Dearden Sr. And he picked me up at the airport once, and I won't tell you the speed he achieved in about half a mile, but there is no car on the road that can accelerate. If you're worried about that for safety reasons, these cars are amazing.
Well, there's a good reason for that, is the engine on that vehicle will go up to 7,000, 8,000 RPM. So when you accelerate, you don't have to go through gears. It just goes right up to that, and it does it very fast. The torque is amazing. Of course, on a school bus, you don't need to go fast, but you need to move a lot of weight, usually 34,000 pounds. So your speed and your capability of moving is tremendously involved in that technology. So I think you're right. It's a very good idea. I wanted to show you something else here that would really be helpful is when we started with Breathe, they said to us, well, if we can do some promotion, we can go to car shows. Everything we do at Breathe, and we've done 140 events in 3 years with Breathe, is they need to be showing not only the cigarette issue and how that's been controlled, but also the option of using an electric car. And they've done so. Here's an example of 10 vehicles that came in, and we had arranged that every vehicle that was brought in and sold that Breathe California got $350. Well, as it turned out, over the time, that brought in $20,000 in donations to Breathe California.
For a nonprofit.
Yes.
We're in very tight times since the debacles, financial debacles, mortgage debacles, 2007, and so that's just great. I noticed the guy on the right-hand side of this picture looks remarkably familiar.
Well, I kind of get around, and I went to these people, East Bay Regional Parks, and they decided that their fleet budget for fuel with using gasoline was so high that they needed to do something about it. And they were spending about $4.20 a gallon. Well, they knew the emissions would be reduced, but they wanted to try this. And we showed them that if you use this type of vehicle, instead of paying $4.50 for a gallon, you could pay 45 cents for the gallon equivalent in electricity. So they cut their total energy bill, fuel bill by 100%, and 1/10 the cost of what they were doing before. And they just have their people go out in these cars when they go around the parks, and they have 26 cubic feet of space in the back of this vehicle, which gives them places for toolboxes, electrical kits, any type of maintenance could be taken care of. So now they got a car that'll take 2 people. It'll run 75 miles an hour. It goes 100 miles, and it costs 1/10 in fuel costs to do the job. These people are very excited, and we have quite a few other companies like this. And we try to get that feedback, and we have had very good feedback from not only the drivers of these vehicles, but they say, well, we thought these vehicles were slow. We didn't think they'd go very far. We heard about all these crises and not being able to get the job done. That is not the case. So we're very pleased with what Breathe has done with us to make this happen.
Well, all of us are happy to see a government agency doing this to save money. But again, the interesting thing is that if you're in a business, it makes sense. They're always reputed to be financially conscious. And obviously, each one of us at home worries about that as well.
Yeah, I drive a Think. My wife drives about 35 miles a day, and we save approximately $350 in gas prices for using that car that way. Well, that's not a lot of money, but it does amount up. When you're having a fleet like the ones that we're focused on, that some of those, like City of San Jose has 2,000 vehicles.
Yeah.
When you start taking a look at your fuel bills in a fleet operation, and you need to get your budget down anyway, if you can go to a vehicle that works, does the job, and also has 1/10 the cost of fuel, it's a significant savings. We also represent, just so you know, the compressed natural gas industry. America just discovered that it had a lot of natural gas. We hear every day that there's a problem with not having jobs for people. The economy is in deep trouble. We believe that the fuel and energy cost for transportation is in a situation that it can solve those problems. We can be selling some of our fuel, like gasoline, to other countries and use the electric solution as well as the CNG solution. It's very exciting, and it's not a matter that, whoops, we only have this much. We have so much of that energy. What we've done with Breathe is we've put together an owner's club of those 50 vehicles. And we meet with them from time to time to get feedback from them, and also for them to be able to talk to each other about what their experiences have been. And this is a fun meeting. We'd like to have you come sometime, because the people are happy. The people say, this works.
Oh, I
I've saved
prefer
money.
grumpy people.
Well, you always have a lot of grumpy people, but not at this meeting. It really works, and it is an inspiration that with CNG and electric, there are solutions right now that can solve not only people's budget, but also a country's budget. We think that's pretty exciting.
So we're talking with Bob Garzee. The Think car that he's promoting in conjunction with Breathe California helps improve your health. You're not inhaling all of those emissions. Others using it reduce emissions and may get us to breathing healthy air around here. It's saving you money, and it's reducing things like climate change emissions. All of those problems are being solved We're going to talk more with Bob after this 30-second announcement from Breathe California.
What it feels like to have an asthma attack is, well, you can't breathe and you can't tell anybody that you're having an asthma attack because you can hardly talk. You can maybe say 1 or 2 words, but you can't say much else. Breathe California has helped me come in contact with more asthmatics and more people who have the same case as I do. It's important to me because I don't feel like I'm alone in the fight against asthma.
Welcome back to Breathe California TV. I'm Terry Trumbull, a volunteer with Breathe California, the lung health organization for California. And our most popular guest on this show has been Bob Garzee, who I've probably known, 15 years, working to give us cleaner transportation. And he's a big part of why this area, Silicon Valley in general, 3/4 of the investment in the electric car is happening in this area. 2/3 of the investment in green technology happening in this area. And when I first met Bob, there's a question coming here. He was telling us about all this wonderful green stuff that he was doing in electronics in the 90s. And I was saying to myself, sell it to Detroit. You got to move to Detroit to sell them. Instead, you've made the market, in effect, come to us.
Well, when something works and it saves them money and it improves their health, it's hard to keep them away from it. And it's really catching on that green transportation works in certain situations. It doesn't work universally, but if you apply the solution in the right place, like we've shown on the car, we've talked about on the buses, it's really something that catches on and people want to buy it. We're now looking at 2 or 3 other types of vehicles like pickups. The Ford 150, which is the most popular. And we find that the best way to solve that issue, based on how they're used, is to go with compressed natural gas. And that allows that pickup to run 250 miles. It allows it to accelerate just as fast as it did before with gasoline. And it allows it to carry 2,000 or 3,000 pounds of a load in the back. And so depending on what your duty cycle is, we apply the right vehicle. And they tell us that in CNG's case, that will work very well for a long haul truck. There's no reason as they get stations along the freeways that they can't put in a station where a trucking stop where you can use that fuel. The fuel would cost today about $1.80 a gallon, not $4.50 a gallon. And it's not as clean as electric, but it's much better than gas by 60%.
So talk a little bit about the issue you just raised. Obviously, the vast majority of us could use an electric vehicle, but there are some situations where compressed gas works. What's the availability and what's the trend in terms of being able to refill or charge up?
Well, that's really interesting because a lot of people say, well, I never have seen a station. Well, there's not as many as gasoline, but there's 17 stations in Silicon Valley. Breathe California just signed a partnership with a company called Clean Energy, which are putting in additional stations so that fleets and individuals that use CNG can pull in, like I pull into the San Jose airport. All the taxis use CNG. All those big blue buses use CNG. And there's a product made by Honda that's a small compact car that people come in and use that. So,
and just to interrupt,
yes,
aren't all of those people being allowed to use the carpool lane?
Oh yes, they have a sticker that goes on the side,
so
just like the electric does. Yes.
To teach yesterday, and it was pretty embarrassing. You know, it was 3-4 lanes, bumper to bumper, and people just sailing along in the carpool lane. It would be nice to be one of them.
Well, you know, I've never had a electric car that I could use in the lane that was for the fast lane. But I actually went to De Anza College from Los Gatos the other day, and it was bumper to bumper. and I saved almost 20 minutes in the commute just because I could go over there. Well, if I can do that and I can save money and I can reduce pollution, I got to tell you, that's why people are buying these vehicles, because they work.
So just emphasize how easy the accessibility is. You've mentioned 17 electric charging stations here. I can remember having a friend on the show with compressed gas, and on the internet you can look up where the stations are, and when you do a trip, you know where the spots are, that if 250 miles range isn't enough for you, you can plan your trip to arrive at those spots.
And Terry, that, if I might have misspoke, the 17 is for CNG.
Okay.
The electric, there used to be 17, now there's over 11,000.
Yeah, well, that's my fellow.
Because they have solved that problem. As it turns out, it's pretty exciting because most of the vehicles are meant to charge when you go home at night.
Yeah.
Or when you go back to the fleet headquarters, they charge and they get ready for the next morning. But if you need to top up, there are all these charging stations which allow you to add, you know, maybe 20, 30 miles in maybe 15 minutes to an hour and a half, and depending on the type of charging unit. That's solving any of those concerns, and they're going to solve the same thing on CNG.
So this all sounds great. How are you able to get Breathe California to be the exclusive selling agent here in the South Bay for the Think Car?
Well, because they looked into different companies that could make a difference. They understood Breathe's attitude about clean air. They knew that they had a very strong transportation program, thanks to what we've done as volunteers. And they just decided that was the best place to go. Now, obviously they can go to other people, and they will, but in this case, they picked a winner, and we were pleased that they did, and we got good results.
So were there some special events that were involved in the placement here?
Yes, one of the things that Breathe does is many exposures to way you can get better air. And of course the EV or the CNG vehicle are great examples. So we do, as I said, 140 events in 3 years. We get a lot of exposure, and then we appreciate this show because a lot of people hear about that. The fact is you can go out and buy a car today that is clean, much less expensive, and it works. That's why we appreciate getting a chance to tell the story.
Well, Bob's with the Green Team, which is affiliated with Breathe California, and anytime you want to know more, either go to the website, which is under Bob's name every time he appears, which is lungsrus.org, or call them at 408-998-5865, and if you're really lucky, you might get Bob while you're there. So, so talk a little bit more about this. What are some of the special features on this limited edition Think Car?
Well, they are considering whether they're going to build a follow-on car. And we are hoping they do, because we're believers that this car does the job. And we've got 50 people to back us up that this works. There's no excuses, there's no problem with the car. It does the job. And we've tried to supplement that by having this users group meeting where the people get a chance to tell us what's going on. And then we feed back that to the manufacturer. We see other companies coming to the United States, and the nice part about it now is they're featuring companies that want to do labor in the United States, use parts that are made in the United States, and a lot of the grants, Terry, that are coming out specify that you have to build it here, you have to assemble it here, and you have to have jobs here if you're going to continue to get funding from our government. And we think that's a good change.
Well, one of the things you talked about on an earlier show was training community college students to do the maintenance on electric cars. So that, again, is a source of local jobs.
Yeah, we've always felt that to be able to handle new technology, you need to have your people go to class. So we have 2 levels. We have the fleet mechanics of all these fleets can have the chance to come to our school and learn over 3 days how to work on electric, hybrid, and CNG. The best part is California Commission pays 50% of their training costs if they go back and are employed, and we think that's very exciting. The second thing is, in 2 weeks, all the high school teachers in Northern California are coming to our center to learn how they could show their students how to build an electric kit car. And so they come away knowing how that technology works. So we go to the lower level students, and then we go to the fleet mechanics. And we think that's a very positive step.
So I know they have been hired and are distributed throughout the area for all the different manufacturers of electric cars. What about the Think Car? Is there a repair and maintenance facility available here locally?
We felt strongly about that, so we said to Think we want to put in a center. So they said, fine, let's do it. And we put one in Santa Clara. And all those 50 people have the ability to take a car locally to get it fixed, not have to be concerned that they don't know where to go. And of course, that's made them feel more comfortable.
So you're about to receive your third Clean Air Award. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody getting 2 before, other than you. What's with that? What's Breathe California has given you your third Clean Air Award. Do you want to brag a little bit about what you've been doing to get that?
Well, I do appreciate it very much because I am a volunteer. And my other partners are volunteers too. We like to be recognized. We like to be exposed in the media so that when we go to, it's like the city of Cupertino the other day, we went in and talked to them about them taking a group position about supporting green transportation. Well, one of the reasons they listened to us is because they heard about the recognition we've had for doing a good job. So it helps us get the job done. And it's going to be on my birthday too, which makes it a double whammy.
Great birthday present. Yeah. So we got about 30 seconds left. What do you want our audience to remember about this show?
That the energy situation with transportation has the elements that can make America turn around with jobs and revenue. We have the energy that we need if we can just focus on that approach. Number 2, that there are a lot of different green transportation solutions, and try not to pick the ones that are 10 years off. Try to match up what your job is, what you're trying to do with a vehicle that works. In some cases there isn't a match, but in many cases there is.
And so we've been talking with Bob Garzee. He's runs the Green Transportation Program in conjunction with Breathe California, called Clean Cities. See you next week.